like I've said, the Kiwis brand has taken a massive hit. I think the Kidwell era pretty much killed off a lot of fans from that performance and that era. Then you add in the factor that Taumalolo pretty much started off the evolution of Mate Maa Tonga and Toa Samoa. And those Kiwi fans that were Samoan or Tongan heritage, that did support the Kiwis, they immediately transferred over to Toa Samoa and Mate Maa Tonga. And that's rightfully so. It's great for the game to have them. And, look, Tonga just went to England to tour for the first time. That is awesome. Then you have Toa Samoa made the World Cup final last year. That's what you want. That's the way to grow the game. But at the same time, the Kiwis brand has taken a little bit of a hit. There's no doubt about that. Then you add in the part where for almost 20 to 30 years, the Kiwis have consistently played over in Australia because of money purposes. If you think about the Anzac tests, an Anzac test for me should be played 1 year in Australia, 1 year in New Zealand. There was almost, 20-something Anzac tests. Only 2 of them ever played in New Zealand, from my understanding. So that, money talks, and for an organisation like the NZRL, they need money to run their programs. And for them, the Kiwis is that money attractor. And a lot of the time, the Aussie dollar has spoken volumes for them to be able to keep their heads above water, I suppose. But that has come at a great cost. For myself, the Kiwis have played in New Zealand 4 out of 15 times. That is just unacceptable. There's probably 4 to New Zealand and 15 times to Australia in the last 15 years. Could you imagine the All Blacks or another Black Caps or another team only playing 4 times against Australia and New Zealand in the last 15 years? And there's no wonder why when people talk about the Kiwis, kids don't know who they are. Well, they've never seen them play in New Zealand. So that tells you a lot about the brand. It tells you a lot about the power of the NRL, the power of the Aussie dollar, and really where the New Zealand Rugby League is at. We have a brand like the Warriors, but again, that's an NRL product that's funded by the NRL. It's, they get a club grant for whatever it is, 10 million, 13 million to run their programs, and they do a great job of the Warriors, and they are the flagship for New Zealand Rugby League if you really think about it. But the Kiwis, because of that, has taken a hit. And, unfortunately, unless there's a billion-dollar investor willing to help grow the game here in New Zealand, it just is what it is. And but because of that, the brand has taken a massive fall. But what happened on Saturday afternoon will help to regrow that. Now, the crowd there, 13,000, that was pretty much the same crowd that was at the last Kiwis game against the Kangaroos in 2018, which was about 12,000 in Mount Smart. Now, people saying, if they had it at Mount Smart, they would have sold it. No. That baseline of 13,000, 12,000, that's pretty much where the Kiwis are at in terms of a national following. Now, we've had games of 26,000 or 22,000 Eden Park, but those are Toa Samoa fans. Those are their fans filling our stadiums up. So I don't want to make it seem like the crowds are fine. No, these are Toa Samoa and Mate Maa Tonga fans that are helping our crowd numbers. So if you really think of the core base of Kiwis, actual Kiwi supporters, that 12,000, 13,000 that was there at Hamilton, that was it. So that number from 2014, I think it was the last Four Nations final, I think they got about 20,000 or 24,000 at Wellington. So you think over that last 10-year, 9-year period, the average now is about 11, 12,000. So they've lost about 10,000, well, probably more than that over that period of time. And it's because of not only the Kidwell era, but it's also because of not being able to play your game. You're limited to 3 tests a year. You play one of those away to Australia, so you really got 2 tests a year. And so you're not building your brand. You're not building it enough to where it's recognisable. People don't know who the Kiwis are. It's just unfortunate. People know the Warriors, but you say who the Kiwis are, probably have no clue. And then they had no idea that it was on. So talking about an event, the Warriors do it the best in this country. in any sport, in my view. But that doesn't translate to an NZRL event. Now, I'll talk about the event. Now, yeah, it was empty. There's no doubt about that. But I got to the event and there was so massive queues out the line, and the national anthems already started. So people probably didn't get in till 20 minutes. Now, there was these massive gates, but there was like 2 or 3 people scanning on there. So again, it tells me that the NZRL don't know how to, calculate for numbers and those types of things. Now, I heard vendors as well for the NZRL. To get merchandise, you only could access it from one part of the stadium. There were no vendors for merchandise, and people were wanting to buy stuff, but they had to go through another gate, apparently, that they couldn't get access to. So you've limited access for your fans to not be able to buy your product. So again, these are amateur hour-ish type marketing, branding, organising of events, things that the NZRL are pretty much incapable of really putting on a prime time event. Now, take that out of the equation. The Warriors had a massive season. No one really wants to watch the Kiwis. And if they don't even know the Kiwis brand or know it's on, then they're not going to really watch it, you know what I mean? So, now there's a lot of the Warriors fan base that you think would translate. No, that's not the case. There are a lot of people that only follow the Warriors. They do not follow the Kiwis. They don't follow anything else. So that Warriors fan base isn't technically going to translate easily to the NZRL or the Kiwis brand. They disconnect from the Kiwis or the international game. They only purely for the Warriors and the NRL product. So that's another thing where you can't assume that because there's 26,000 Warriors going to there every week, that doesn't translate to the Kiwis. Okay. Then you add in pricing. Now, me and my hardcore league fan, I love the sport. I will follow it. I follow all the forums, everything. I had to make a tough decision to see if I wanted to go or not. It was really that hard because the pricing point was just unaffordable, and especially for people in Hamilton, I know across the board. The people that were there were the hardcore grassroots people. And if you know our grassroots people, they're doing it tough right now. Those prices weren't encouraging and me, like I said, I'm a massive Kiwis fan. I even questioned whether I should go to the game or just watch it at home. It was that expensive. The prime gold seats were like $75 or whatever, and then the platinum seats were $100. And so it's only rightfully so that you saw that crowd and thought that was absolutely rubbish. Why is that? Well, that's a big part of the reason. So you've almost gone away from your core fan base. Look, if those tickets were like Warriors, like credit to the Warriors, a lot of those tickets were $10, $15. I have no doubt that we could have got up to 16,000, 17,000 maybe. But I know a lot of people would have looked up online to buy the tickets and looked at the price and thought, might just watch it on TV today. So that's really a big issue, the price point. So they've gone for that model where you sell less tickets but you make more money, whatever it is, which I just think is dumb. But like I was going back to the fan base, there 13,000 that were there were hardcore. There were people from the grassroots. There were people that volunteer every week in our rugby league clubs around Hamilton, around Auckland or New Zealand. They were the hardcores there. So the big question now is, there's reports that the NRL are going to take over from these events. I don't completely agree with that. I think the NZRL, and I know Greg Peters has said that anything on New Zealand soil outside of the Warriors, we control those events, or we get a cut from it, or we organise it, or whatever. You don't tell us what to do. That's fine. But I do believe the NRL should work with the NZRL. Work with them. Don't take over, because then again, you're taking power away from the country that has sovereign rights to organise rugby league matches, and specifically test matches for the Kiwis here. But work with them and help them promote the game. There was some parts that were very amateurish, like I talked about the merchandise, not having enough people on the stalls to get through, like literally people, I think probably got in about 20 minutes well, the game was already through. I think it was that bad. Their marketing promotion, again, there wasn't enough done, or how do you capture an audience post the NRL, or how do you capture a casual fan audience to go out for a fun day or an event, a casual event, to get them to come along and watch the Kiwis. There was no posters around Hamilton. There was no advertising. I saw maybe one advertising thing. What can you do to help promote a game? Now, the Warriors are great at it. The NRL are great at it. Why can't the NZRL put your hand up and say, hey, we need some help. Can you help us? I don't think the NRL should take over the things, but I think they should assist the NZRL to put those things in place, because that ultimately, that crowd there that they saw, there was an empty stadium, impacts their product. You're putting out NRL players out there, and it's showing that they're devaluing the value of their players and their product to an extent. It's not necessarily the NRL's product, but they are NRL players playing in really a sparse crowd that has an impact on, wanting to grow the Pacific Championships or whatever it is, or wanting to, make your game look like it's a global game, or whatever your plan is, you know what I mean? So that wasn't a great view. So yes, they should work with the Warriors and the NZRL, and the NRL should work together to promote those events. The next thing for the Kiwis is they need to really build off of that performance. You need to be able to promote. I understand the CBA, the Players Union, didn't get a chance to, really break down, their deal until, August or September. So you had 3 months to organise these events. Yeah, that's just not going to work. So you need a whole year, and hopefully they're already planning out next season's Pacific Championships, where you can get your media, your marketing, get all your advertising and promotion done right, because you want to see that product grow. Now, that might not even be enough to get people to watch the Kiwis. That's how powerful the NRL and the Warriors are, is that people will still turn off. So how are you going to re-engage those fans? How are you going to make tickets a little bit more affordable, so that if you have your fans that saw this performance of 30-0 last year, and they come up against the Kangaroos again and say Wellington or wherever it is, how are you going to engage them and say, hey, come and witness this again? That's going to be the tricky part. But I think a performance like that for the Kiwis will help a lot with that brand. I thought everyone there, the 13,000 that were there, they were awesome. That crowd, for me personally, it was even different to a Warriors crowd. That was a hardcore league crowd, and they were cheering hard. They got those boys home. And that's why it's so important, and I hope Greg Peters and the NZRL understand this. You need to play your tests at home. Too long, for 25 years, 30 years now, we've been sacrificing Kiwis games at home for the Aussie dollar. Now, I understand that you need to put your head above the water, you need to survive, but that's not going to help build your brand. You have to play the Kangaroos every year in New Zealand at some point. You just have to. And if you get it twice a year, that would even be great. Now, the Mate Mātongas and Toa Samoa, absolutely. Play them in Mount Smart, play them in wherever. Those fans are great, and they need opportunity, especially the Auckland-based diaspora, and that they need to. In fact, you can probably play them in Hamilton, and they'll probably sell out FMG with their fan base. Amazing fan base, and yes, but you can't rely on them to pay for your bills. You need to build your own Kiwis fans again. You need to have, Toa, Mate Mātonga, they have their fans. That's awesome. Now, you need to build the Kiwis brand. How are you going to do that? What can you do to say go from 13,000, that's your base, how do we get it up to 16,000 next year? Ultimately 20,000. How can you get it to a point where Kiwis games sell out? Yeah, there might be a 5-year, 10-year period. It might take a World Cup one in 2026 or whatever it is to rebuild that faith, rebuild that trust in the brand. But what's your plan? So that's where my question's at for the NZRL. It's time to really, not sacrifice the brand for the Aussie dollar to run your programs. I know that's unfortunate, but you need to trust in your brand. You need to trust in the Kiwis that you can take it anywhere in New Zealand. At some point, you're going to be able to take it anywhere in New Zealand, and it's going to be able to sell. That's going to probably take 10 to 12 years but you need to do it every year. Whatever chance you can get a test there, you need to take it and keep it in New Zealand. Do not sell your soul for that Aussie dollar. Do not sell your soul to play in, of course, play your away games, games in Melbourne or Suncorp, And credit to our Kiwis over there, they go to the games. They probably sell out more than the Kangaroos. So it's not as though, we don't have Kiwis fans around. We definitely do. But the Kiwis fans in New Zealand very rarely get to see them play against the Kangaroos. And you saw that 30-0. Yes, that was the team, but that crowd, the impact of the New Zealand crowd is still powerful. The New Zealand League crowd is still there. It's still thriving. It still wants to support their team. But you just got to make it happen. You got to and trust in us. You got to trust in those Kiwis fans that they will come out and support you, and you'll get a result like that again. You'll be able to beat the Kangaroos regularly if you bring tests back home, because the data shows that you can. So that's my view on the crowds. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me know what you think the issue is. Look, there's a bigger issue. I mean, the Warriors are so big now that it's overshadowed anything the Kiwis. But that's great, because we want to have professional rugby league in New Zealand. But there has to be a way of trying to figure out how the Kiwis can grow their brand a little bit. Technically, the Warriors only get 12 games in New Zealand, and the Kiwis get. So there's only been 14 professional rugby league games played in New Zealand. How do we grow that number? How do the Warriors get 12 and Musa get 4 and 16, and then at some stage you get a second NRL team, and then you're looking at 30 professional, rugby league matches in this country a year, and that's when you're starting to really grow your brand and the game in New Zealand. But that's a talk for another time. Let me know what you guys think. Please like, share, and subscribe. Catch you later.